Let's talk about stress and being stress-free. This is the moment in which you are either enjoying or not enjoying your life. What you are thinking now is creating the way you feel in your body now and your experiences tomorrow. If you are stressing yourself out over every little thing and making mountains out of molehills, you will never find inner peace. We talk a lot about stress these days. Everyone seems to be stressed out by something. Stress seems to be a buzzword, and we use it to the point where I think it's a cop-out. I'm so stressed, or this is so stressful, all this stress, stress, stress. I think that stress is a fearful reaction to life's constant changes. It is an excuse we often use for not taking responsibility for our own feelings. If we can put the blame out there on someone or something, then we can just play the innocent victim. But being the victim doesn't make us feel good, and it doesn't change the situation. Often we are stressing ourselves because we have our priorities mixed up. So many of us feel that money is the most important thing in our lives, but this is not true. There is something far more important and precious to us, without which we could not live. What is that? It's our breath. Our breath is the most precious substance in our lives, and yet we totally take for granted when we exhale that our next breath will be there. If we did not take another breath, we would not last 3 minutes. Now, if the power that created us has given us enough breath to last as long as we shall live, can we not trust life that everything else we need will also be supplied? When we trust life to take care of us and all our little problems, then stress just melts away. You do not have time to waste on negative thinking or emotions, because that only creates more of what you say you don't want. If you are doing some positive affirmations and you are not getting the results you want, then check to see how often during the day you allow yourself to feel bad, to be upset. These emotions are probably exactly what is frustrating you and delaying the manifestation of your affirmations and stopping the flow of your good. The next time you realize how stressed you are, ask yourself, what is scaring you? Stress is just fear. It's that simple. You do not need to be afraid of life or afraid of your own emotions. Find out what you are doing to yourself that is creating this fear within you. Your inner goal is joy and harmony and peace. Harmony is being at peace with yourself. It is not possible to have stress and inner harmony at the same time. When you are at peace, you do one thing at a time, and you don't let things get to you. When you feel stressed, do something to release the fear. Breathe deeply or go for a brisk walk. Remind yourself that I am the only power in my world, and I create a peaceful, loving, joyful, fulfilling life. You want to move through life feeling safe. Don't give a little word like stress a lot of power. Don't use it as an excuse to create tension in your body. Nothing, no person, place, or thing has any power over you. You are the only thinker in your mind, and it is your thoughts that create your life. So train yourself to think thoughts that make you feel good. That way, you will always be creating your life out of joy and in joy. Joy always brings more to be joyous about. Affirmations for a stress-free life. I let go of all fear and doubt, and life becomes simple and easy for me. I create a stress-free world for myself. I relax all my neck muscles, and I let go of any tension in my shoulders. I slowly breathe in and out, and I find myself relaxing more and more with each breath. I am a capable person, and I can handle anything that comes my way. I am centered and focused. I feel more secure each day. I am safe when I express my feelings. I can be serene in any situation. I am comfortable with my finances. I am always able to pay my bills on time. I trust myself to deal with any problems that arise during the day. I realize that stress is only fear. I now release all fears. I am in the process of making positive changes in all areas of my life. Let's talk about job success. This is a big problem for many people. However, you can always have a successful job if you will change your thinking about work. You will never find working a pleasure if you hate your job or you can't stand your boss. What a terrible affirmation that is. It will be impossible for you to ever attract a great job with that belief system. If you want to enjoy your time at work, then you must change your thinking. I'm a great believer in blessing with love every person, place, and thing at the workplace. Begin with your current job. Affirm that this job is merely a stepping stone to far greater positions. You are in your current job because of the things you believed in the past. You drew it to you by your thinking. Perhaps you learned your attitude towards work from your parents. No matter, you can change your thinking now. So bless with love your boss, your coworkers, the location, the building, the stairs or elevators, the rooms, the furniture, and each and every customer. This creates a loving mental atmosphere within you, and the whole office will respond to it. I have never understood the reasoning behind putting down or berating others at work. If you are an owner, a manager, or a supervisor, how can you possibly expect to get the best work from others if they are frightened or resentful? We all want to be appreciated, acknowledged, and encouraged. If you support your employees and give them respect, then they will give you the best work they can. Now, please don't believe that it is hard to get a job. That may be true for many, but it does not have to be true for you. You only need one job, and your consciousness will open the pathway for you. Don't have faith in fear. When you hear of negative trends in business or in the economy, immediately affirm, that may be true for some, but it is not true for me. I always prosper no matter where I am or what is going on. People often ask me for the affirmations to make their relationships at work be smoother. In fact, for many people, this is a really big issue in their lives. I am deeply aware that whatever I give out comes back to me multiplied, and this is true everywhere, including at work. In the workplace, it is important to know that every employee and employer has been attracted by the action of love, for it's his and her divine right place here and now at this point in time and space. Divine harmony permeates us all, and we can all flow together in the workplace in a most productive and joyous way. There aren't any problems that don't have solutions. There aren't any questions without answers. Choose to go beyond the problem to seek the divine right action solution to any discord that may seem to appear. Be willing to learn from any discord or confusion as it comes up. It's important to release all blame and turn within to seek the truth. And be willing to release whatever pattern may be in your consciousness that has contributed to the situation. Know that you are successful in all that you do. You're inspired and productive. You serve others willingly and gladly. Divine harmony reigns supreme within and around you, and within and around each and every person in your workplace. When you know and declare that it's possible to successfully operate in the workplace according to divine principles, then divine love brings to you those who can be helped by that which you so lovingly do. Now, if you like your job but feel you're not getting paid enough, then bless your current salary with love. Expressing gratitude for what you do have enables it to grow. And absolutely no more bitching about the job or coworkers. Your consciousness put you where you are now. Your changing consciousness can lift you to a better position. You can do it. During your workday, there are a number of things you can do to release tension. Here are a few ideas. 1. Before you go to work every day, do this simple exercise. Just sit comfortably and concentrate on your breath. Whenever you notice thoughts coming in, gently bring your awareness back to your breath. Give yourself at least 10 or 15 minutes to dwell in the silence each day. There is nothing difficult or tricky to this, and it's worth taking the time. 2. Write or type this affirmation and put it where you can see it at work. My job is a peaceful haven. I bless my job with love. I put love in every corner, and my job lovingly responds with warmth and comfort. I am at peace. When you start to think about your boss, say this affirmation to yourself. I only give out that which I wish to receive. My love and acceptance of others is mirrored to me in every way. Refuse to be limited in any way by human mind thinking. Your life can be filled with love and joy because your work is a divine idea. Remember to say to yourself every day before going to work, no matter where I am, there is only infinite good, infinite wisdom, infinite harmony, and love. Positive affirmations for job success. The joy I find in my career is reflected in my overall happiness. At my job, my coworkers and I encourage each other's growth and success. The perfect job is looking for me, and we are being brought together now. I truly believe that we are here to bless and prosper each other. I reflect this belief in my daily interactions. When it is time for a new job, the perfect position presents itself easily. Opportunities are everywhere. I have unlimited choices. Working together is part of the purpose of life. I love the people I work with. I deserve to have a successful career, and I accept it now. Everyone I encounter at work today has my best interests at heart. I am very good at giving encouragement and positive feedback to others. I have unlimited potential. Only good lies before me. My workspace is a pleasure to be in. There is mutual respect among my coworkers.
Do you have a definition for crisis? Like, what is a crisis?
It's a gift. It's a gift. Everything is. It's interesting you mentioned The Power of Intention because I wrote that book in what you would call a crisis. My wife and I had separated. I was 60 years old. You don't break up when you're 60 and have 7 kids. You know, you do that in junior high school. And for about a year and a half, I was in the closest thing I've ever had to a depression, a clinical depression. Didn't want to get up, just couldn't figure it out. My wife had met somebody else, had moved in with them and so on. And my children encouraged me to just start writing again. They said, if you just write about it. And I really didn't want to write about it. But I had lost a lot of weight. People thought I was sick. People thought I was dying, and so on. And that book was just channeled to me. And I think in moments of crisis, what it teaches us is to become more compassionate. And compassion is at the heart of higher consciousness and enlightenment. The Dalai Lama said that if we could take every child on the planet and have them meditate on compassion for 1 hour a week, every child at the age of 5, in one generation we could eliminate all violence on Earth. So that's how powerful he believes compassion to be. And I understood that because the power of intention was a major shift for me. I began to look less flippantly and less egotistically at the world, and came from a place of inner grace or kindness, gentleness, love, what I call divine love. So that I've always felt that it is not always so important to just be in a state of gratitude when things go well, and when you're around people that smell good and that make you feel good and that look good. But it's the low points in our life, reminders that there's something inside of us that wants to have an outpouring of love. See, even the miser who loves his gold doesn't really love his gold because of the gold. The gold is just another thing. It doesn't have any love in it. It's just an object, a metal object. The reason that the miser loves his gold is because of the outpouring of love that he has for the gold. And that's true of everything and everyone. It's learning to have this outpouring of love, and you don't just have to have it for people and events, but you can have it for this microphone, and you can have it for the cameras, and you can have it for the wall, and the table, and the chair, and everything that you encounter. And I think for me, probably one of what you would call a crisis in my life was the diagnosis of leukemia 3 years ago. And when I first heard that word leukemia has cancer all around it. Cancer has a lot of fear all around it. And even if you aren't afraid to die, which I'm not, there's no point in being afraid of that. There's no point in being afraid of anything. You still, there's that inbred sort of psychic kind of awareness that cancer and fear go together, and so it was. It turned out to be one of the great blessings in my life. I encountered John of God down in Brazil, and was able to have just a magical experience around it. But what happened is when I had this healing and leukemia was taken out of my body, it wasn't so much that leukemia was taken out. What was taken out was fear, and it was replaced by love. Almost immediately, not almost, immediately after I had what they call the removal of the sutures, a week after the surgery, this remote surgery, I started feeling just love for everyone. I walked out of the room that morning, 7 days after the surgery, and I looked at my children and I just put my arms around them. I said, "You've just never looked more beautiful." And I looked at the ocean and it looked like just a big bowl of love soup. And the trees looked fluorescent, and every person that I walked by and looked at just became just objects of love.
I went through a couple of quotes. One was from Valerie Hunt's book, The Infinite Mind, which is the display quote for the 6th chapter of Spiritual Solution. She said, "But I do not believe that man can perceive his godlike qualities until his field reaches higher and higher vibrations and attains a greater degree of coherency. No matter how hard we may try to receive spiritual guidance, we cannot until our fields are attuned to that vibrational system called God." Let me share that with you again. "But I do not believe that man can perceive his godlike qualities until his field reaches higher and higher vibrations and attains a greater degree of coherency. So that you can sit there in anger and in fear and in shame and all of the reactions in your life that compute to make you weak, and that will make sense shortly. And you can never come to know God according to the mind field theory that Dr. Hunt espouses and talks about, and according to a spiritual solution to every problem. Because when you're not at peace, you have sent your body into a vibrational field of energy in which you have allowed your mind to create the error or the illusion that you and God are no longer connected. And that begins to take over. And as hard as you may try, and no matter what you may do, until you can raise the frequency at which you vibrate, until you can raise the energy level at which you experience life, and move out of the lower and slower frequencies and into the higher frequencies, you will not be able to access and negotiate the presence of a spiritual solution to your problems.
You see, the intellect has trouble with this, because the intellect is the mind, and the mind is the ego. If you ask most people, where is your center? Where are you centered? They will point to their head. Where do you originate from? Where is your source? Where is your ability to think and to process? They will point to their head, and they will say, it's in my brain. My brain is what makes me be able to think and be able to understand concepts and so on. If you ask a spiritual being, where is your source? Where is your center? What is it that gives you the ability to understand these great miraculous things? They will point to their heart. And so, heart consciousness is very different than head consciousness. The head consciousness is one which tries to analyze it, so tries to figure it out, and has a great deal of difficulty with it because it's coming from this position of separateness. The heart is your intuition. The heart is the part of you that says, I know and I trust, and it works for me, and I don't have to convince anyone else of it. And once you have this, even prayer becomes not like, most people think of prayer as like, God is like this huge vending machine in the sky, all right? And I put in my tokens, and I behave in a certain way, and certain things are going to come to me. But there's an authentic kind of prayer that is very different than this. And this kind of prayer is one in which your prayer is in communion with God rather than separation from. I turn it over to this higher part, but it's not something that I'm ever separate from. That's trust. That kind of trust, in combination with knowing that you're no longer afraid of being God. Know ye that ye are gods. And I am in you, and you are in me, and I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. It's like this is something that we are being taught, and yet we have been conditioned almost to subscribe to another idea which says that I am not trustworthy, I am separate from, I can't do those things. That has to be transcended. You have to understand that in terms of people using it to give fear to you. And our greatest fear is the fear that we're going to be alone, that we're going to be abandoned. But this universal intelligence that is everywhere, this divine intelligence that is universal, that is in all things, how can it abandon us? Wherever we go, it's there. When you trust in that and know it without any doubt, you begin to see it everywhere. You see it in the flowers. You see it in the sunsets. You see it in your babies and in your mother-in-law. You see it in all places. And what you're doing when you see it is you're recognizing that I am worthy, and I am important, and I am significant. Yes, I am connected to God. I am what God is doing. And that's the subject of the next principle. Honoring your worthiness to receive. Thank you.
Yesterday, we talked, and I mentioned that I also grew up with an alcoholic stepfather who, always told me that I'd never amount to anything or never be anything. And recently I sold my business and ordered a new car with the intentions of driving out to his grave and urinating on it. Now, you're telling me I'm going to have to go out there and pray for him. Am I correct? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
The relevance of that question, and I think it's a good one, is because I wanted to do that too, is that our greatest teachers are not the people who agree with us and
many times the most powerful and important teachers in our life. In fact, you might only be where you are today and have that car because this teacher came along. And who's to know? Now think about this. Who's to know in an infinite universe in which there's no beginning and no end, how many lifetimes we get? If it's infinity, you get as many as it's, there's no number that you can place on it. And who's to know that, one little lifetime, that this father of yours, stepfather of yours, like my father, just signed up and said, I remember Betty Eadie writing about this in one of her books and saying that somebody had incarnated onto this plane in order to sit as a bum in front of a particular office entrance in order to have someone walk by and see them and develop some compassion that they didn't have before. And he said, I'll take a lifetime to do that. And who's to know that this stepfather didn't incarnate into this world to talk to you about what a jerk you were and to put all of these kinds of negative thoughts into your mind in order to teach you how to transcend your own your own anger and your own hatreds and your own lower consciousness, your own levels. And that perhaps, I've often said that the people who can push your buttons and the people who can send you into those lower places are your greatest teachers that you'll ever have, because they teach you that you haven't mastered yourself yet. And when you haven't mastered yourself, what that means is you still don't know how to choose peace in response to their hostility, in response to what they have done. And they keep pushing you, and they never go away, they never disappear. I call them, they're like turds that won't flush, they just keep coming back and coming back and coming back. He may have been the person that is most responsible, like my own father might have been the person most responsible, because I wanted to prove something and I needed to forgive. And maybe he showed up just to teach me to forgive. And when I did, everything in my life turned around. Everything. So I'd send him some flowers on his grave. Yeah.
Does forgiveness mean you have to accept someone back into your life, or can you forgive someone at a distance?
It has nothing to do with whether they're there present physically or not. Nothing to do with that at all. Forgiveness is an act of the heart. What you're talking about is an act of the feet. Whether they're going to be there or not going to be there. Forgiveness is an act of the heart. It takes place in here. And many times, the people that you have to forgive, it's like everybody in your life is like a character in a play. Okay? So the character in the play, some of them are in for the first act, and some of them are in for the first two acts. Some are in for the whole play. All right? And some just make entrances and then they leave. And some have roles to play that are not quite as salubrious as you would like them to be. But they're all just characters in this play called your life. And it doesn't mean that if someone, let's say you were married to someone that was very abusive and hostile to you, you got to be able to still send them love. That's what it's all about. But you don't have to stay with them. You don't ever have to be a victim. They have played out. They were in the first act or the first two acts, but they're not in the third act or the fourth act. They're not there any longer. It's just a play. All the world is a play, is a stage, and we're just actors on that stage. Yeah, any others?
Again, I understand forgiveness, but you say forgiveness has to come from the heart, and I agree with that. But if you feel so hurt over something, how do you get that forgiveness how do you feel it in your heart? I can say it, I can articulate it, but I don't always have that feeling that I'm really doing it.
Our feelings come from our thoughts. And you just think it enough until the feeling energy begins to materialize for you. You think it enough. You just keep thinking it. And eventually you will feel what you are thinking. That's why I tell people who are trying to do anything that is difficult, just keep saying it over and over again. Did you see the hockey trial? And the man who got manslaughter and for beating up this other man, the man's father, who lost his son to the brutality of this particular man, put his arm around the man and said, "I forgive you. I forgive you." There's never any peace unless you do. Because if you have that hatred and you carry it around with you for the rest of your life, you can't justify a resentment.
It's like a snake bite. The bite doesn't kill you, and you can't be unbitten. It's the venom that continues to pour after the bite that is deadly. You have a choice about the venom that continues to pour after you've been bitten. You can't be unbitten, but you certainly don't have to have the venom.
Memorize these 4 words. Passion always trumps excuses. However, keep in mind that when I use the word passion, I'm not referring to the romantic notions that this concept conjures. Instead, I'm equating it to a vigorous kind of enthusiasm that you feel deep within you and that isn't easy to explain or define. This kind of passion propels you in a direction that seems motivated by a force beyond your control. It's the inner excitement of being on the right path, doing what feels good to you and what you know you're meant to do. It's my contention that the mere presence of passion within you and the enthusiasm that comes with it is all you need to fulfill your dreams. And let's take a brief look at the word enthusiasm. As the novelist and woman of letters, Madame de Staël, noted in 1810, quote, "The sense of this word among the Greeks affords the noblest definition of it. Enthusiasm signifies God in us," unquote. God is in no need of excuses ever. The creative divine spirit is able to manifest anything it contemplates, and you and I are the results of its contemplating itself into material form. Thus, when we have an emotional reaction that feels like overwhelming passion for what we're contemplating, we're experiencing the God within us, and nothing can hold us back. Enthusiasm becomes our co-creator. I take you back to those 4 words that I opened this chapter with. Passion always trumps excuses. Stay with your passion, and excuses will most assuredly be gone. Enthusiasm overcomes excuses. Passion is a feeling that tells you this is the right thing to do. Nothing can stand in my way. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. This feeling is so good that it cannot be ignored. I'm going to follow my bliss and act upon this glorious sensation of joy. Excuses, on the other hand, communicate the opposite message. I don't really have to follow through. Look at how dull all of this is anyway. This isn't very important. If it was, I'd be excited about it. I'll drop it for now. I can always do it later. This isn't really for me. I'll just finish it quickly and get it over with. Think of Madame de Staël's definition of enthusiasm, that it signifies God in you. If you can imagine God at work creating beingness, form, out of non-beingness, spirit, you'll begin to understand the assertion of Jesus that, quote, "with God, all things are possible," unquote. So if all things are possible with God, and God is within you in the form of your passionate enthusiasm, why would you ever need to employ an excuse of any kind? When you're enthusiastic, nothing seems difficult. When you have passion, there are no risks. Family dramas become meaningless. Money isn't an issue. You know that you have the strength and the smarts, and the rules laid down by others have no bearing on you whatsoever. That's because you're answering your own calling. And the you who is doing the answering is the highest part of you, or the God within you. The presence of passion within you is the greatest gift you can receive. And when it's aligned with spirit, treat it as a miracle, doing everything you can to hold on to it. I feel this way about the creation of my books. I've learned over the years that when I go to that place of passion within me, there's no force in the universe that can interfere with my completing a project. I live it and I breathe it, keeping notepads close at hand when I eat, when I drive, when I practice yoga, and even when I sleep. My life is consumed by the passion I feel for what I'm doing. Yet I know that as long as I feel this, I'm experiencing the God within. My enthusiasm seems to cause my world to endlessly offer me cooperative, co-creating experiences. Ideas come to me in my sleep, and I wake up and I jot them down. Ideas flow to me in yoga class, and I make a mental note to record them when I've finished exercising. I'm willing and I'm eager, not just about my writing. I feel the same about staying in shape, about enjoying my family, about preparing myself to do a film, about giving a lecture, or whatever it may be. When willingness and eagerness are present, God joins in. This is why I say that the presence of passion is so critical. It doesn't just help us emulate the all-creating divine mind, it allows us to become one with it again. If you have passion, there's no need for excuses, because your enthusiasm will trump any reasoning you might come up with. Your excitement will propel you towards acting on what you've been imagining with such gusto, so you won't need an explanation for what's holding you back. While this doesn't guarantee that your venture will be financially successful or well received, it does guarantee that you'll follow it through to completion, since the force behind it is God within you. Enthusiasm makes excuses a non-issue. When you seek the presence of your creative spirit and are filled with passion about virtually everything you undertake, you'll successfully remove the roadblocks from your life and enjoy the active presence of spirit. The only thing that you need for this state of joy is something to be passionate about, something that speaks only to you, that gets you tingling inside with excitement, something that won't go away, that radiates within you, that sends you into a frenzy of good feelings because it makes you feel purposeful and connected to your source of being. It doesn't matter what it is. The only requirement is that you feel intensely about it and are willing to act with enthusiasm, awakening the sleeping God within you. As Abraham Maslow once observed about self-actualizing people, they must be what they can be. Take a moment now to think about what you can be, and contrast that with what you've chosen to be up until now. So what can you be? You might decide to become passionate about getting yourself in optimal physical shape. Are you able to walk up a few flights of stairs without gasping for air? Are you capable of running 10 miles without being totally exhausted? Are you carrying excessive weight? Are you in that high percentage of people who fall into the obesity range? Do you treat your body as a temple, attending to its highest needs? Can you become zealous about living a healthy life? Perhaps you have an idea that you've been carrying around with you for decades, such as a book that you know needs to be written, which only you have the wisdom to create. Can you get so passionate about realizing your vision that you activate the presence of God to assist you in co-creating your dreams? Remember, the mere presence of that passion, nothing more, is evidence that the energy of the divine creating spirit is alive and well in you. That's all you need. Just the willingness to allow your passion to speak up and awaken from its dormant status. You don't have to know how to activate your long-buried enthusiasm or precisely what to focus on. What you need is the willingness to say yes to signals from within you, the God within you that wants to be active.
If you don't believe what goes around comes around, the next time you see somebody down, just smile at them. Just say hello and be friendly toward them. And you'll see that what you send out is what comes back. Now that law of the universe is so powerful that it affects every cell in your body. Every cell in your body. When you look at one cell in your body, ask yourself what makes the cell work. What makes a cell in your body work? Do you know what makes one individual little cell work? Harmony and cooperation. That's how cells work. An individual cell. If what's inside that cell, the electrons, the neutrons, and the protons, and all that physics stuff that's inside one, if any of them get out of whack and start not cooperating or not working in harmony, what happens to the cells around it? They're affected in some way, aren't they? When one individual cell is affected in a negative way, that is, when it loses its harmony, when it loses its cooperation, then it affects negatively those cells around it. And that's the disease, all right? And that spreads to another cell and to another cell. And before long, the harmony within you is, physiologically, is destroyed. There's two kinds of energy, supposedly, in every cell. One is the physics energy. Shirley MacLaine talks about this in her wonderful book, Out on a Limb. I recommend you read it. She talks about the physics of what is energy within one cell. And then that there's another kind of energy within a cell that scientists and physicists and chemists, none of us can figure out what it is, but it is what makes the whole thing work. They just call it the source. And that source, the nearest they can get to is love, or cooperation, or harmony, what we call love, which is just love. It's just cooperating and being in harmony with. All right? That's what love is. And that is what makes every single cell work. And when one doesn't work right, it affects the other cells. Now, for a minute, just for a minute, think of yourself as a cell, just as one big cell, okay? Now, one of us as a cell goes out of whack, goes amok, doesn't work right in some way. Does it affect those around us? One cell gone wrong can affect all the other cells around us. It's just a growth process, seeing bigger and bigger cells. But when you think about the entire size of our universe, which is endless, which we can't even begin to comprehend what endless means, and uncaused causes and so on, then you are as big as one of those tiny little cells inside of you. And if you go amok in some way, then you affect those around you. And if our planet, which is just another cell, in billions and billions and billions of other cells, if our whole planet goes amok, that is, if we store up enough weapons and we do enough killing and we have enough hate, and as a people we do that, then we will not only affect everything down to that tiny little cell, but all the cells in our planet, in our universe, and it will go on forever. See, I have taken to sending out ICUS, a copy of my parable. I send these books out to all influential people in the world in every field. Just the last 2 weeks, I think our mailing lists have totaled over 4,000 at my own expense, just signing them and sending them out to all the government leaders, all the medical leaders, all education leaders, all people in celebrities data, all people associated with different religions and so on. I'm just sending them out. All right? Now, many times when you send things out in the mail to a large mailing list, you get some back. Karma. Understanding how our universe works. In every single obstacle that you run into in your life, there's an opportunity. Every obstacle you have is a hidden opportunity. And seeing it, rather than as something to complain about or call your lawyer about or get upset about or anything in between, you see there is an opportunity in every setback you have in life, including everything you're suffering from right now. Everything, whatever it may be. There's an opportunity in it. Look for the opportunity. Look for the fulfillment, the potential for finding out what you're made out of, rather than for finding out how well you can say, see, I told you things weren't going to work out for me. So in sending out these books, I'll get 100 back. You send out 4,000, you get 100 back. That's a good day. Okay? Only 100 came back. Now, most people who send things out free and get some back say, well, this isn't working, I'm getting these back, I get 100 back and all that. To me, it's like, how can I find that person? This is a test. To me, that's a test from the universe to say, what are you made of? You're just going to give up and not find that person? Or are you going to go look for that person, because that's to find out what you're made out of. And that's what I do with all of that, and have always done. And somehow just knew to do that. When it's somebody says no, it's how can I figure out a way to go around that no? Rather than I think that they're right, I'll just give up. It's always how can I get around that?
If you don't accept yourself, nothing else, no one else is either. You know, it's like, I think of it as like we're all creations of God. We all come from the same place. You know, T.S. Eliot said that we shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time. And he was speaking about death, and I don't. I don't take that as an explanation of death. I take that as an explanation of an understanding that we all emerged from this place, the same place, that we're all connected. Everything in this universe is connected. Larry Dossey has just written a beautiful book called One Mind, and I've just finished reading it, and it's like showing scientifically how everything is connected to everything in this universe, and you can't take anything and not see the connection to it, especially at the quantum level. So that So who you are is a creation of God. You know, in my book Wishes Fulfilled, I talk about, it's like one of the things you have to recognize is that your highest self is God. You must be like what you came from. So a little tiny spark of who you are is the Tao, is God, is divine mind, is Krishna, is consciousness, is Buddha, whatever you want to call it. In the Tao, the opening line of the Tao says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. We can't find a name for it. It's just like, but it's the best name we can come for it is something called love. It's just love. It's divine love. And so this is what you came from. So if you don't accept yourself, you're not accepting something that is the creation of God. You know, because truly, I mean, it's like the greatest wisdom that you can have is the recognition that you are a piece of this divinity. And I walk around with just Rumi said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. I'm just in a state of bewilderment about it all. And when you accept yourself, you love yourself. And when you love yourself, that's what you have to give away. And the only thing that you can give away, and that's what a saint is, someone who can only give love away, because that's all they have inside. That's been my goal in my life, is to have no enemies, to have nothing, and particularly not to make an enemy of myself. To love everything about myself. And while I was going through the last 6 months of this pain, the stuff we tapped on down in Australia and so on, most of the time, and you heard me say it many times, say there's a lesson in this for me. And I just did a public television special, another public television special. And when I got an hour and a half before the show to start, I got one of these attacks again in the neck, and I was just like, how am I going to get through this thing, and so on. And I said a prayer. My wife was there, 2 of my girls were there, we were in the room, I had my arms around them, and I said, if I'm supposed to endure this pain, for whatever reason that I don't even understand yet, I'm willing to do it. But could I please just have the next couple of hours so that I could at least get through this experience? And it just dissolved. And I was able, you were there, you were in the audience, and I was able to go out there and do it. And then the pain returned the next day, and I went right back to that state, and I still do it now. And I can feel it even now as we're talking about it a little bit here. And instead of cursing it, instead of being angry at it, I accept it as my dharma. This is, and whatever it is that I have to learn from it, generally speaking, every difficulty I've had in my life, getting divorced, literally being someone who is addicted to substances, including alcohol, letting go of, those kinds of beliefs that those are terrible things that I should be ashamed of. They've been amongst my greatest teachers. And this pain is just another one of those things. And generally speaking, I now can go out and help people who live in chronic pain. Yeah. And you do a lot of this with your tapping. I've seen you do it on stage, with people. When we were out in Australia, that one woman, what was it? She couldn't even...
Well, there's one lady with a frozen shoulder who couldn't move her arm.
Who hadn't been able to move her arm in years.
In 20 minutes, she got it up like that.
Yeah. So it's like... And that comes from just accepting yourself and actually instead of cursing the pain, because when you curse the pain and get angry at it, you get angry. Every cell of your being goes through that same anger. And what you want to do is just get to that peaceful place within yourself where you say, when you trust in yourself, you're really trusting in the wisdom that created you, and the wisdom that created you is infinite and it's formless. And so your thoughts are in that same category. Have thoughts that are aligned with that divine presence. Yeah. You'll see it going away.
Yeah.
Quote from A Course in Miracles. The memory of God comes to the quiet mind. It cannot come where there is conflict. For a mind at war against itself remembers not eternal gentleness. What you remember is a part of you. For you must be as God created you. Let all this madness be undone for you, and turn in peace to the remembrance of God, still shining in your quiet mind. It's about remembering our origination. I committed this passage to memory many years ago, and I use it as a way to remember who I truly am and where I really came from, particularly when I communicate with my Creator to stay on purpose and in spirit. Now I'd like to go through each of the messages in this observation from A Course in Miracles one by one. Number 1, the memory of God comes to the quiet mind. We came from a quiet, peaceful place. That's the very essence of creation. So when our mind is filled with noisy dialogue, we shut out the possibility of remembering our spirit. Incessant chatter keeps us attached to the physical world and produces anxiety, stress, fear, worry, and so many of the emotional reactions that are decidedly removed from God realization. We must minimize distractions when we wish to communicate with God. So being in nature, away from the artificial noises that invade our space, is helpful. But the most important thing to consider is how to keep our mind free from the dizzying, bewildering cascade of thoughts flowing through our head from morning till night, and even on into our dream state. It's been estimated that we have something like 60,000 separate thoughts every day. The real problem is that we have the same 60,000 thoughts today that we had yesterday. I've made the practice of meditation a part of my daily life because it's one way to quiet the mind so that the memory of God is accessible. So by learning to meditate, or at the very least shutting down the inner dialogue produced, directed, and acted upon by your ego, you can open up a space for remembering and returning to spirit. 2, it cannot come where there is conflict. In order for conflict to exist, there must be 2 opposing forces at work. That is, one force, in the form of an idea, a point of view, a desire, or a contribution, directly clashes with another. Conflict defines our lives in many ways, as we oppose our partners, our children, our bosses, our neighbors, and even our countries. In politics, it's always one party versus the other. And the entertainment industry portrays battling points of view that are usually turned into violent scenes. Essentially, conflict requires two-ness. However, remembering where we came from involves our returning to the oneness of being in spirit. After all, there are no battling powers in the divine realm of spirit. There's only perfect oneness. And this is what we want to rejoin. We want to become one again with our Creator. And we can't retrieve this memory of God with a mind in conflict in any way. 3. For a mind at war against itself remembers not eternal gentleness. The second part of this teaching from A Course in Miracles reinforces that a combative mind cannot remember where it once resided in eternal gentleness. Obviously, you can't wage war and simultaneously focus on peace and gentleness, and it is eternal gentleness that you want to remember and rejoin. It's really quite simple to do this. Just close down the battlefield and surrender. Remove all of the artillery, send the soldiers home, and replace the instruments of war in your mind with thoughts of peace, tranquility, and surrender. Making your mind a place of peace is achieved by your own will, so steadfastly refusing to have thoughts of conflict allows you to activate the glory of remembering your spirit. 4. The fourth part of this quote. What you remember is a part of you. Every memory I have is me. What a glorious feeling it is to know this. We each have the power to retrieve any piece of ourselves that we desire and to experience it right here, right now, in this present moment. The great Danish theologian Søren Kierkegaard once observed that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. In other words, if we can't go back and remember the spiritual bliss that defined us before the beginning, we've really abandoned a part of ourselves. As we move into communion with God, we must know that our inability to remember our spiritual origins is another way of really saying, quote, I'm unable to know myself because I have no recollection or memory of my spirit, unquote. In fact, the corollary of this line from A Course in Miracles that we're processing right now would be, what you don't remember is not a part of you. In other words, if we fail to remember spirit, then obviously it isn't a part of us. And 5, for you must be as God created you. As you communicate with your source of being, know that you're awakening a part of yourself that's just like God. In fact, you ought to try to approach communication with God by being as closely aligned to the way that you were created as possible. That is, by becoming a vibrational match to the all-loving Creator. Come to the quiet moments in consultation with God in love, in peace, and without judgment. As A Course in Miracles is saying, you must be as you were created. So why put on a false mask and pretend to be anything or anyone else? In this way, you can open the channel of communication because you finally remembered to be the way you were created. And that's the key to effective prayer. And as Gandhi once said, prayer is not an old woman's idle amusement. Properly understood and applied, it's the most potent instrument of action. And 6, let all this madness be undone for you, and turn in peace to the remembrance of God still shining in your quiet mind. Let's take the 3 suggestions in this teaching one at a time. First, A Course says, let this madness be undone. The madness here is that of living in a state of conflict. In other words, we must make an attempt to transcend the dichotomies of our life because the division creates so much suffering and keeps us from living an inspired life. I remember a Ram Dass lecture in which he said, I firmly come to the conclusion that there are no thems for me anymore. I can't be told who to hate, who to fight, who to subdue. I only see an us in my heart. All those messages to divvy up our world are insane. All our self-centeredness just drives our ego's insatiable appetite for making us special and putting other people down. The Course encourages us to be done with this madness once and for all, both in our minds and in our actions. And second, we're told to turn in peace to the remembrance of God. Once again, we know in our heart that we came from a place of peace. So any discord can't be the result of our Creator's actions. God cannot come to us when we pray from non-peace, so the solution is to return to the remembrance of Him and ask to be made an instrument of His peace. When I find myself out of sorts, I remember. And what I remember is to turn to peace right now in prayer. I become peace rather than anguish, and I feel the calmness I long for come over me like a wave of pleasurable relief. The most important thing that you will gain from cultivating unconditional love
will be freedom from hate and violence. When these thoughts are removed, you discover the presence of joy and peace. This is an automatic reaction to unconditional love because you are in harmony with the creative source. The ego identifies you primarily as a physical body, separate from God, and in need of constant stroking to massage your self-importance. When you simply say this is an illusion and it doesn't really exist, those ideas are replaced with unconditional love, and the joy you experience is really the denial of the false and an affirmation of the truth of your being. You are absolutely free when you are not consumed with your self-importance. You are free when you no longer need to be stroked, coddled, and approved of by everyone you meet. There is a great sense of joy in feeling free. Think of times when you have felt the freest in your life, when the pressures to perform are off, when you are walking in nature, when you are in solitude and communing with God. Joy, freedom, and unconditional love are inseparable. They flow from the experience of each other. To be joyful is to hold on to nothing and to have no restrictions. This is also the feeling of freedom, and it is a result of embracing the unconditional love of the divine energy that is the center of your being. This is not to say that one ought not to enjoy a massage, a delicious meal, lovemaking, and all of the pleasures of the body, but it is the mind that is processing and allowing you to experience the pleasure. It is the mind that makes it real. Your purpose is to align your mind with the unconditional love that is the divine source of all material things, including your body. With that alignment comes joy and power. When one drop of water separates from the ocean, it becomes a speck that is essentially powerless and weak. But when it aligns with its source, the ocean itself, it is powerful beyond what is possible as an individual drop of ocean, and so it is with you. It's a difficult thing for our egos to contemplate this concept of oneness. Unconditional love and becoming a co-creator in your life is possible when you know that God is not separate from you. You and God are one and the same. In the New Testament, Jesus says to the multitudes, "I have said, ye are gods." And later, "When a man believes in me, he does not believe in me only, but in the one who sent me. When he looks at me, he sees the one who sent me." One of the great meditation exercises that I learned many years ago involves imagining lifting yourself out of your body and floating into space so far that you are actually observing the entire planet. If you do this, try to imagine what the Earth is like without you on it. It is a very difficult task for your ego to even contemplate the world without you on it. Next, begin to observe the planet without any judgment, refusing to label anything good or bad, right or wrong. Simply instruct yourself to notice, allow, and send unconditional love. The process of being a detached observer occurs in the silence of your contemplations or meditations. Begin by seeking out time to be quiet and enter this inner place of love. It is in that silence that you will come to truly know the divine energy of unconditional love. Remember to keep uppermost in mind that love transforms. Unconditional love heals the body and the mind. And then also remember that the polarity of love is fear. Fear is a current of energy that literally runs through your body and is produced when you feel cut off from the source of unconditional love. Every time you experience fear, ask yourself, what's going on that I have substituted fear for love in this moment? Also, begin to acquire a private, non-publicized, and regular habit of meditating. With every breath you take, feel yourself taking in unconditional love. With every exhalation, expel thoughts of fear. Then pick one day to practice this exercise with a partner of your choice. Make a decision to think, act, and radiate nothing but unconditional love for the entire 24-hour period, including your dreams. If this works for you for one day, see if you can extend it for another day or two. Also, try making a decision to turn over your most difficult challenges in the area of unconditional love to God. Simply turn them over with a request such as, I have been unable to bring love into my life in these areas, and I am asking for your divine guidance in accomplishing this. Also, in your silent moments of prayer, do not be afraid to ask for help. And then know the connection between manifesting your heart's desire and unconditional love. Without your connection to this love, you lose your connection to the creative process. Unconditional love is in all things you wish to attract as well as in you. Keep it honestly, and you keep your ability to know that you are a God. Lose it, and you lose your godliness. It is that simple. It is with unconditional love that you find your true connection to the divine energy that is in all things.